And I'm going to tell you the basics, and then I have to admit I really got into this and I did some kind of out there stuff. But I was just like, I'm going to do this. Okay. So you're taking a note. I use the word notebook, which of course is a noun, but it's that you are taking notes. That's all we're saying. You're taking notes and you are an author. You could call it the researcher's notebook. That might even be better. I think when I called it the author's notebook initially, it was because I was thinking about teaching people to write academically, but
Mm.
we could easily call it the researcher's notebook. Of course, call it whatever you want to call it. It's just your notes on research articles. So like I say, mine is it is on the Moodle. So what do you record? What do you write down in your author's notebook? Um, about the format, I've usually asked for them in Word. It really, though, when I think about it, you can save Word as a PDF and you can save a PDF as Word. So especially with formatting, I suppose if you had like a table or something, I could see PDF. So let's just say either PDF or Word. Some people do, I've taught this in seminars, and so I've encouraged them to do what works for them, because one of my central messages is, yes, you are turning this in a class, but it's for you. It is 100% for you. It's your notes. It's your notebook. So I always joke, like Pam Rutledge, my former colleague here in the program, was a very visual person. I'm auditory and verbal, and I can't draw anything that looks interesting or tells me anything. So I'm going to do it in certain ways. And I do have a template to answer your question, Angel, but that's not because I need you to do it that way. That's because I do it that way for me. But I've had people write in pencil and take a picture of it. I've had people draw. I know people use, oh gosh, Evernote and, other things like that. You can do anything you want. And just so you know as well, to lower the pressure, it is not as if I'm going to like sit down dramatically and deeply read through all of your notes while judging you. I'm basically going to
Assigning
think
gold stars.
you did it, right? Right. I'm not going to think, elaborate thoughts. Because as we all know, I got stuff to do. But I just want to know that your research is going forward, right? And it does tell me whenever I glance at them, because I've seen so many, that it tells me if people understand certain things, like, do they understand that what I'm going to tell you in this, that why the different certain things would be pivotal to know. But that doesn't mean you can't digress from that, because you're also writing them for your own purposes. And that purpose could be for a paper, for a presentation, for your dissertation, to learn a background literature. It could be for a lot of things. So that the point is, you shouldn't think that I, for instance, am going to highly scrutinize these. I'm going to just check that you're doing them. I try to, like, if you've said some stuff like, I love when Patrick Swayze appears in SpongeBob or something, then they're like, oh, wait, I should catch that. But I won't always do that. Anyway, so it's for you. What would you put in your notes? Well, I think of it primarily like, how are these notes going to help you be a research psychologist? So that might be, they're going to help you summarize the entire study, because that's something people do in an introduction to a research paper. Especially, they'll give more detail if that study is really germane to or close to what research they're doing. It will help you decide what study to do. And in this lab, we're doing that together. So what studies have been done, what studies should be done, what studies are we into doing, that kind of thing. And when I look back at this, will I know the main information I would need to know to remind myself what happened in this paper? With all those words in there and all those numbers and everything else, can I cut to what's important? And we're all different. Like, I'm sure I always use Regina as an example because I think of her as a very theoretical and historical minded thinker. And I think of myself a lot is a very methodological thinker, but theory is important to me too, and methods are important to her too. It's just people look for different things, and I'm going to be looking for certain things. So what would you include? Some key terms like words that are in the title, like what is nostalgia? Um, in this case, there's a number of ways they talk about that. This paper is theoretical, meaning they're telling why they think they could explain some of these past findings. Um, that would go in your notes. The design, like my little chart where I just say experimental, correlational. And if you're new to research methods, those things may be new to you. Or if you don't have a psychology major, those things may be new to you. And, you know, I started college in 1988, so I was a psychology major. So those words are not new to me, you know, since the 80s. So I'll talk about them like they are, but I know that people come into this program with various backgrounds. If you don't have that background, may I recommend Andreas Mal's Novello's Psychological Intro to Psychological Science, because you know, it's like speaking a foreign language. You have to you want to get to the point where you understand what those things mean. So and that's why you would know what details to put down. And it's also what makes it easier to read and skim, because I know where things go in articles, because I know what APA style is. And APA style is not just the citations, the references, it's what goes where, what information goes where, and it's mapped out. It's a factual thing. Like your hypotheses go at the end of your introduction. That's APA style. It's not a choice or anything like that. Like people will say to me over the years, well, if you want them to go there, I'm like, I do, because that's what it says in the APA manual. It's not like me, like, I think they should go there. It's just in the APA manual. So some of the main predictions, I'm talking in quantitative language. This language would be a little different for qualitative research. The main findings, and I think it's really helpful to have quotations. My rule for quotations is if I can easily paraphrase it, I don't need to use their quotation. But I think if somebody said something really in a way that those words themselves are so powerful that I want to use it, then I'll quote it. I can sometimes put a quote in there that's just for me to remember what they said, and I'm not going to use the quote directly. But in APA style, you use the page number with the quotation. So rather than skimming that entire article to say, I remember they said something about like social connectedness, like what was that? You know, instead of doing that, if I think it's important when I read it, then I'm putting it in there and I don't have to find it again, and I don't have to look up the page number. Crucial for things you're going to use like over and over again. If your dissertation, Stephen, is on nostalgia and you're going to use this paper or some paper over and over again, you just go back to that. One of my go-to papers is an Oliver and Barch 2012, or Oliver, excuse me, Barch 2012 and Oliver and Barch 2011. I cite those all the time. It's really important that you don't copy and paste directly from the article without quotes. Feel free to copy and paste directly from the article, but put the quotes and put the page number, because you don't want one of your poor colleagues to go in there and start writing, think that that's your paraphrase and you're plagiarizing. So that's why I've got it in screaming caps, because it's super important. When you submit something to journals nowadays, they do a plagiarism check in most journals, so it will flag you as having plagiarized, and you could get in trouble for that. So that's why the all caps.
So,
So, oh, go
sorry,
ahead.
if we attach that, just something you said, I got to worry. If we were to attach to Zotero, I use EndNote.
Mhm.
I have over 1,000 in EndNote, and since I'm at this end stage, I don't think I'm going to port everything. So when I add something to Zotero now that we're connected, does it automatically add to the lab collection? Is that what you're just saying, that all of us say there are going to be 10 attachments to the group Zotero, or will it remain on mine just so I can find it?
When you put it in the group one, it will be attached to the Baldwin article. And there's nothing wrong with your notes having quotations in them. Is that what you're asking? Like it would be
No, I
good?
wasn't asking about the quotations. I was asking about our attachment of this researcher's notebook.
Yeah,
When you
so let me
say
show
you would
you.
like us to put it on Zotero, you're saying on the group Zotero rather
Yes.
than our own.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I got to see it. The power of doing these and sharing them is that members of the lab will have everyone's notes. And usually we're not reading the same article. Usually
Right.
like one person is presenting on the article or two people read the article. I just thought this was so foundational. We should all read it.
So
Um,
will there be 10 attachments on this one?
yep.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So do you see this? This is it right here.
Yes,
Do you see my screen sharing?
yes.
So here's the article in a PDF, and we can see JF, AN, KS. We put our initials in the document. So yeah, these are, if I double click on that, let's see what happens. Yep. So this is my, speaking of the template or the format, this is
Mhm.
the way I do it because I like little boxes and I like places that I put certain things. Like I label it like this: key points, main variables, main findings, reference. Um, these are all just things I want to write about. These are all notes.
Do
And
you have a template for that to share with all the
yep, it's
lovely
right here.
boxes?
So in this file, this right here is a template. So if you
Ah,
copied and pasted this, this is the one I used. So you can just
I-
copy paste it out of there. And there's multiple ones I posted on Moodle that say they're exemplars. Yeah, this is the one that I use.
okay.
So in doing that, I'm pointing out what it is I am interested in. I'm always interested in the variables, the method, the findings. Key points can be anything, and quotations with page numbers. And for this one, see, this is a lot of notes because it's 7 studies, is deeply theoretical, and I did different stuff here that I don't necessarily always do because, for one thing, I'm planning on using this for research in this lab. You know, it's my research, it's our research, whoever's on one project. So it's something I care a lot about and I need to know about, and it reminds me of other things. So that's why I have all that info in there. So does that
That's,
answer the question?
yes.
So we've been working for like a year and a half or something, trying to figure out how do we share our notes with each other. It's more complicated than it seems like it would be, and we just came up with the Zotero thing. That's online and on people's desktops, so you can see it from where you are, but whenever you put it in the group, everyone in the group can see it and we can download it and we can use it because, like I say, part of the strength of this lab is we share our notes with each other, and that's not typical. I did this job for the Gina Davis Institute and I shared notes from a lot of the articles that I read and took notes on. And they were really happy about that, just that one thing. They were paying me, so for that one thing, they got all those notes, my notes, that they can use to write from in the future. So it's good. So obviously this is a very busy slide. What I did on this abstract, I just took a picture of the abstract. I highlighted every time I saw the name of a variable. This paper is just so good. Just good in so many ways. I think it's a model paper. Um, I met Monica Burnett in grad school because I'm from Missouri and she's at KU, and we used to drive over to Lawrence, Kansas, which is just across the border from Kansas City, Missouri, um, and hang out with the people there. So she's certainly super sharp. She has a husband, Chris Crandall, who's also a researcher who studies fear of fat. He has a fear of fat scale that he's known for.
And his
So
name is Chris Kringle?
Chris, Chris Crandall, that's so cute.
Oh, I was like, Santa?
I know, that's what I thought too.
Yeah, because Santa is really bugged about people saying he's fat. That is funny. I need to like think about that more deeply later. So I probably annoy people by doing this type of thing to their dissertation. I'm highlighting their terms. These people are doing this like rock star level 100%. When I'm doing it, I'm always like, you need to use the same word for the same concept every time you mean that. So if you are talking about nostalgia, say nostalgia. Don't say synonyms, because in other forms of writing, we vary things and we say synonyms to make it seem more rich and varied. We do not do that in science. And if you do it, some of my hair will spring into spikes on my head. It'll just be like, don't, please, I'll start crying. But other than my own breakdowns, it's just so hard. If you're called upon to use the same terms throughout for whatever you're doing. If it is nostalgia you're talking about, you're going to say nostalgia. And things vary, like they're talking about state nostalgia right here, and they're talking about experimentally induced nostalgia in other places. So that is fine because they're talking about those specifics. So everything in this paragraph is 100% A plus spot on. And this is what we should all go for, that they are so clear. I think I'm in love with all three of these people. I need to Google them right after this. They are so clear, and I cannot tell you how much I love that. It's so refreshing. And this article is published in the most prestigious journal of social psych because it's highly valuable from a theory perspective. They did so much to demonstrate so many facets of this by doing 7 whole studies. And they're unbelievably clear about the reasons they did it and what they are giving us. So they have told us in this paper what the value of the paper is. It's amazing. So I say in your author's notebook, you want to record what kind of design they use. And I understand if you're new to this concept, then that's going to be really hard for you. Whereas if you've been doing it for a while, or if you have a background in social science research, it'll be like second nature. But so in this paper, there were 7 studies and most of them were experimental. And some of them had moderation analysis, some of them had mediation analysis, and the last one was a correlational design. I always tell people that you don't have to give details on all studies if there's this many studies. Why I would do it is I'm going to use this over and over again, and I want to know what's where. And also, because they're incredibly clear, it's incredibly easy for me to know what they did. You know from the abstract what they found, what they did, and there's so many studies, so it's like a marvel. So your notes are going to differ from published writings. You're trying to explain the point of the paper, what they did, what their argument is. We talk a lot about argument in the program. They're arguing some things. They're arguing that the experience of nostalgia evokes a person's feeling of their authentic self. That's one of their main findings. That's a piece of the context for me. Like if I just had, like if someone were leaving me and never to see me again, I would, and they needed to know about this article, I'd be like, nostalgia evokes your sense of authentic self. Bye. That's what this paper is about. That's the point. Like in a movie pitch where you have like a sentence or two, same thing for a research study. And by the way, sometimes in your own research study, you can become sad because you don't even know what you meant anymore. So the fact that they have it nailed is also impressive. Of course, they're professionals. Of course, they're really good at their job. But let me tell you, I have come to the end of some studies and thought, what were we doing? Why did I do that? And what does it all mean? So as we're designing these, we want to keep in mind, we have to explain why we did it all, and it has to be a good reason that we can explain to others who aren't in our lab team. You want to make your comments to the research study relevant to your own research, in this case, in a project that we might be doing together. So one of the projects we're hooking up is related to music and nostalgia. Well, you can see when you know about the foundations of nostalgia, something about a song might evoke you to feel a sense of who you really are, the truth of your self-concept. And that might evoke feelings of connection to other people and to a sense of well-being. And so if people love a song, it might be for those reasons. So that, again, theory means why. Why do I feel this way when I hear this song? Because of this. So this paper could be cited for so many reasons. Like I say, the format is up to you. Draw pictures, record a video if you want to. If you will watch it again, do the transcript. There's no no-nos. The bottom line is it's for you, and it's also in here, it's for us all, it's for the lab that I say at the bottom here. You want to open it up and understand what you meant a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 months from now. And you might think, oh, I will. No, like you really, like you have to be clear or you won't, because you wouldn't have just read it. That's why the premise of the show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader, is silly, because they just learned it and you didn't, you learned it, in 1975. So of course they remember. But of course it's funny. So you also want your colleagues to understand it. So if you make some reference, you have to explain it. So it has to be self-explanatory. If you've ever taught a class using your friend's notes, like you can't do that because they'll say monkey example. And then you're like, I don't know what that means. What is the monkey example? So you would have to put it all in there. So let them stand on their own. They can be in complete sentences. They can be in bullets. I've posted a number of exemplary notebook entries. Some of them come from, say, social psych classes I've taught in the past that I ask people if I can post their notes. There's a one in there from Perry. It's not even labeled with his name, but it's Braun and Clark, which is a qualitative thematic analysis paper. And he has a whole different format. I write notes in different formats than this one sometimes. Okay, so that's what this is to be useful. So it's not to be, it's not even to be impressive or anything. It's to be dead useful. It's like a manual or something. So here's where I got that all that I have just said is all you need to know. But I decided to go deeper into this process by doing a demonstration of how other people in the world have used this Baldwin et al. Article. So I'll make a side little video that'll be like 3 minutes long about how I did this if you don't know. But any article that's published, you can look at who has cited them. So I did that. I pulled up this Baldwin et al. Article, went to the library, and I pulled up everyone who has ever cited them. And I then downloaded like a dozen or half a dozen of those papers, and I pulled quotes to share with you all. Why did I do that? Because I want to prove that I'm a super nerd. I really wanted to do it because I really care about this stuff and I'm super interested, and I want to show you where the rubber hits the road. These people all needed notes, they needed some way to remember all this so that then they could use this paper that we just read as their evidence of something. So it depends on what you're writing, or it depends on if you're designing a study, and that's why you're reading this paper, which is one of the things we're doing. But I put in my notes lots of things that they're called knowledge claims or evidence claims. If I say nostalgia evokes well-being, that's a claim, and I have to have evidence. I can't just say that. So that's what I did. So this is to show you what other psychologists write about is what they took note of, and whether they took note of it mentally, casually, in conversation, formally, in a notebook, they somehow remembered it and they used it. So we know the study we're talking about. In your notes, you're writing what's the context, why do we want to know about this? They tell you about past nostalgia research, past troubles, like people used to think nostalgia was a pathological state, and they're arguing that it is not. A big question is always, what is this paper evidence of? If someone said, how do you know nostalgia evokes well-being? Hand them the paper. This paper is evidence of that. And not only is it evidence of that from 7 studies, they also cite in their introduction several things that are evidence of something. it would be helpful also, in addition to what I'm going to show you, if you could find a lengthy discussion of this article somewhere. I haven't done that yet, but I'm often, if I'm writing a book, I'm writing a paragraph length coverage of something. And if it's really important, I'm writing like pages of, like, if it's a book or something. So what you would write in a sentence or half a sentence is very different than what you'd write in a paragraph or several pages. So what are you going to do with it? Sometimes you don't know what you're going to do with it, but you can bet you're going to need to know the variables, the design, and the main findings. And you're probably going to want to know what page numbers those quotes are on. So these are evidentiary quotes. So like I said, I pulled all those articles, I downloaded them, and I put them on the class Moodle, so you can look at them too. So these people, Bennett, Chen, Stephen and Sedikides, and Yuan et al., they have cited this Baldwin article, and here's what they said about it. I've got my little, something on my screen is in the way of me seeing this, just a sec. Yeah. Back to this, there we go. So here they cited nostalgia-prone individuals, correlation with increased life satisfaction, and they cited our piece, Baldwin et al. And this is the Bennett et al. Article, believe it or not, that's the page number 26251. That's the page number. Compared to control participants, nostalgic participants reported higher self-esteem and authenticity. They're citing Baldwin for that. So these are all statements of evidence. Nostalgia promotes a growth orientation. That's in this paper. And nostalgic memories typically feature the self as a protagonist in momentous events such as anniversaries and births, experiences involving specific settings such as a university. So there could be many reasons why you're wanting evidence. And so in my notes, I try to say, I'm writing this down just so I know, like, you're giving a talk and someone says, well, when you ask, because these Baldwin and colleagues ask people to think of memories that are nostalgic, someone might say, well, what kind of memories do they think of? Well, that's one answer to that question, those kind of memories. Oh, and so these are my notes. Like I say, I did things in here like that I did not do in my short presentation because it's only 5 to 10 minutes, but they induced nostalgia. I think the word induced is funny because it's a word for pregnancy and delivery. They caused nostalgia feelings to happen. And there are different ways they did that. So they used this scale, this Hepper et al. This memory makes me feel nostalgic. This memory makes me feel wistful. They used other elaborations. They wrote in 1 or 2 sentences summarizing nostalgic memory. There's different nostalgia inventories on here. So if I just want to say, sometimes people think nostalgia is pathological, but there's plenty of research that's not. I can cite that there. So that's the gist of that. And to reiterate why we do this together is because if we have 10 notes or what have you on this one article, which we usually won't, if you read through all those, you could have AI summarize them. I don't know. I mean, you guys have plenty of ideas, I'm sure, that I hadn't even thought of what do you do with that? And each person is different, so they will have different takes on it. In my notes, oh, I'll show you this. In my notes, I make notes to myself, and I always put brackets around them. So I put a bracket there and I put my initials. So I'm talking to myself, or I'm saying to myself, oh, we should do a study about this and this. Or in here, because I've been thinking about this a lot, this is sort of like a paragraph that I might write about this article. It just induced me to write this paragraph. So, you know, anything that will remind me of all the things I was thinking about, and all of these page numbers tell me, like, oh, what other scales could I use for this idea that we're not thinking of what other people want us to do right now. Well, there's a 20-item extrinsic contingency focus scale by Williams et al. 2010. So if I go back through this, it'll give me ideas of ways I could measure nostalgia, ways I could induce nostalgia, ways I could measure any of these other things. So that is an explanation of why I take the notes that I take, and I also put notes to myself in it, so that I can go back, and sometimes it'll be 4 years later and I'll think I never did that study and I could do that study. So that is all I have to say about that.